Quilters, I'm Pam Heller from AccuQuilt, and I am so excited today to introduce you to the amazing Kaye England. How are you, my friend?
I am dandy, thank you,
Good.
thank you, and I am double excited to be here with all of you, and we can't wait to share this project with you.
Yes. So Kaye has been working with AccuQuilt to design a new die, but before we get to that part, talk to us about this Odette book and the Odette Block.
Well, for any of you that know me and have followed what I've done for the past probably 40 years in this industry, I'm heavily involved in women's history and have worked with a lot of blocks that were designed for famous women, and not necessarily their archival blocks. Things like a Martha Washington block has probably been around for 50, 75
right.
or more. And really all it is combining a batch of elements and celebrating a woman and telling the story. And that's sort of how Odette came about. And for those of you who go, who in the world is Odette?
I had that question.
Yeah, I bet everybody did. She is the granddaughter of Fritz Gagoff, who is the first inventor, or the inventor of the first hem stitch machine in the industry. And growing up in that environment then, at some point she became head of Bernina, which is an international company, and it's in Switzerland. But I don't want people to lose sight of the fact of the brand is one thing, but the fact that a woman read this brought it into a reason that her story needed to be told.
Right. Yeah. Right. So what you did is you took some blocks and some elements.
Exactly.
And you created this block.
Yes.
Correct? And this is called the Odette block in honor of her as well. And then you made this beautiful book. So let's open it up and have you kind of go through it and talk about the process and the pieces.
Well, and first let me address, because I have people all the time say, well, how do you design a block? And honestly, everything is built on a grid system.
It is.
Which is frankly how AccuQuilt is built.
Right.
And when it's on a grid system, you just lay down X number of elements until you reach something that you're happy with.
Right.
And we're always careful to say that we can't swear that someone in another state, another country couldn't have laid down those same elements. So we don't try to say no one in the world has ever done this or ever put this together. But it is a block that will honor Odette Ulci. That's kind of the goal. And the book, we call it a booklet because it's not a massive big book, but it does have Odette's story in it. And that's the first part of it.
And here she is.
That's one of her. I love everything about the way she ran this company. And I was a Bernina dealer for many years, so of course I knew who she was, but I didn't ever get to meet her. Right. But I love the story, and I love her involvement, and how we know that we have men and women that sew, and even children, but it's a woman-sewn business for the most part, as far as the majority of our sewers are. And I think it's so important to celebrate the fact that this is a woman who ran a company in Switzerland when women couldn't vote until 1971.
That in itself is a miracle.
Should be why everybody in the world needs to make an Odette block.
Yes, you do. You do. And then how many blocks, keep going, how many blocks did you create in this book?
There's just one block. So there's the Odette block. And when we were first doing it, for anybody who's worked with me, I primarily have worked with specialty rulers. But what we decided to do was to make this for the world. Okay. So it is, we have given, where we could, then we have given AccuQuilt elements. Right. We have done rulers, which is specialty rulers, and then what I love to call traditional work, where I say, if you live in a tree and have a stick, you can make this quilt.
You can do this.
You can make this block. Yes. And so it's really just it's a four patch in a way, because there's 1, 2, 3, 4. Right. So it's a grid system based off of a 4-patch element. Okay. Then we set about designing quilts. Right. And how big does this block finish? This is a 12-inch block. Right. And if I were making this with AccuQuilt cubes, I would be working with the 8-inch cube. Okay. What if I only owned the 6? Oh, wait. You could make a 6-inch block. Oh, I can make a 6-inch cube block, which would end up being it would end up being a different size, but I
Yes.
could make it with the 12.
Right.
So if you own one and you go, oh, I can't use that. Yes, you can.
Yes, you can.
So,
and I love the fact that you recognize that elements are interchangeable.
absolutely.
Interchangeable.
And we can certainly delve into that a little bit later, can't
Yes, we can.
So as we look through the quilts, the very first quilt that I made was always I called always at the beginning. And one of the things I loved about working with the Odette story is she said one of her messages in her running a company was, we are always at the beginning, never at the end.
Okay, we need to embroider that on a shirt
on
somewhere,
a pillow.
right?
I say embroider on a pillow. But I get goosebumps every
Every
time I say that. So the very first quilt that I made for the book, I called always at the beginning.
As you should.
The last quilt I made for the book is never at the end.
Right.
So what I tried to do by going through the book and looking at the different quilts is I tried to make them with secondary blocks where there is a secondary block that I could do with rulers.
Right.
And I can also do with AccuQuilt.
Right.
Then I would have a different look. So the Always at the Beginning quilt has 12 Odette blocks, but then it has 6 alternate blocks.
Okay.
So as we look through the different quilts,
Right.
that's kind of how we approach the book.
Right. So if you're making this with a cube, the 8-inch cube, it's going to finish to 10 or 12 inches.
Exactly.
But if you use our new bob die that we're going to show you here in a little bit, it's going to finish to 11 inches. And we're going to talk about that when we cut and sew a block.
Absolutely. And don't y'all fall off a chair right now going, oh, I don't want to do 11-inch block.
I can't do it. There's nothing to do with 11 inch.
Doesn't fit anything. So
11 doesn't go with anything.
11 goes with 22.
I know, all the things, all the things.
But what we tried to do then was to give you optional things, and I even did a medallion where
This
I
is so
could make
pretty.
a larger block for the center and then just do the standard 12-inch Odettes. But you could still do this with the new die we're going to show you because you just use your framing around whatever your center
Right.
block is and you come to a grid.
Right.
You just, these are things that people despair over
Right.
when honestly the only thing you need to do is just measure it
Right.
and add to it.
And we're going to talk about setting triangles when we get to that
Yep,
point.
side set triangles.
And how those all work.
Yep.
All right, so this is Odette's Odyssey.
And that, I was really clever in all my names, what I call them. And Never at the End is the last one I made. And that's where I get into, I love the term incorporated borders for your side set triangle. So instead of having a big quarter square
space,
triangle
right.
that has, well, the quilting, this is where your quilting really comes into play, then I can break that down in the components that live in the block and just make squares and end up with a filled setting triangle.
Super cute.
That's what makes this, I think, so really, really valuable.
Sure.
And then there's also an embroidery collection that was done to fit this exact box. So Ricky Timms designed an embroidery collection called Legends and Legacies.
Okay.
That was all done that fits the Odette Block, and any of you that do embroidery on any brand of machine know that you have the option of enlarging
Right.
and reducing.
Right.
So you can still take the 11-inch block or the 12 or the 8, whatever you
Yeah.
end up making, and you can make your embroidery accommodate your piece block.
I love that.
Yep.
I love that. Okay. All right. So quilters, we are going to get ready and we're going to show you how to cut and sew a block. So be right back.